Well, hi everyone, and welcome to Pushing the Limits. It's fantastic to have you back with me again. Today I have the lovely Carly Taylor with me. Welcome to the show, Carly. It's fantastic to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Oh, super excited. So, Carly is the famous wife of Paul Taylor, who I've had recently on my podcast too, and who I really connected with. I think he's an absolute legend, your husband. What he's doing is absolutely, I think he's probably as crazy as me, if not worse.
Ah, and as passionate, I think.
And as passionate and silly and crazy. And so I thought, who is this amazing woman that is with Paul Taylor? Because she'd have to be pretty something special. And I started researching into what you do, and I thought, oh, I have to have you on the show as well. So welcome, Carly, and it's really exciting to have you. And today we're going to talk about Morita therapy and ACT therapy. And I'll let you explain what all that is and give us a bit of your background. But can you just tell us who you are and where you're from and all that sort of jazz?
Yeah. Okay. So I do one-on-one coaching. So I'm a mindset coach, but with a bit of a twist, because I use the modalities of Japanese psychology and acceptance and commitment therapy. And I also throw in a bit of stoicism as well, because all three of those modalities are just so intertwined. And it's just what I find incredible is what's relevant today is what was relevant back 2000 years ago, and also in the Eastern, in the Japanese psychology as well. So so the Japanese psychology, there was three components to it. So there's Morita therapy, which is also known as the psychology of action.
Yep.
Which is kind of unusual, because you kind of think of Eastern philosophy and, when you think of meditation and contemplation and all that sort of stuff, but Morita therapy is very much about purpose and action. Wow. Then there's Nikan, which is the self-reflection exercise that you can do, and then Kaizen as well, which is that sort of incremental things that you can do to improve over time. But my main focus is Morita therapy.
Right. Okay. And so how did you get into this? So what was your background before you got into, how did you get into mindset coaching? Like, what's your personal story, if you like?
It's really evolved. I've always been someone who likes helping people. Like, over the years, I was kind of the go-to whenever friends had problems and that. And I looked at like, yeah, exactly. I was always the shoulder, but I think I started off looking into life coaching. I did, when we were in Scotland, I did voluntary work with Childline Scotland, and that was such a brilliant organisation, and they had really good training. So I kind of started my training with that, and counselling over the phone with young people, and I really got a lot out of it. And I then looked at life coaching, and it didn't really resonate with me. And then by the time I kind of was, trying to figure out what direction I was going to go there, my background's completely different. My background is music and advertising.
Wow.
So I kind of did it about turn and tried to sort of play to my strengths, I guess. Had kids, and so my focus was on the kids. And then Paul was, he was building his business and doing a lot of traveling, doing a lot of extra educational stuff, just continually learning. Yeah. And I was doing that sort of in the background as well, but not with the intensity that he was doing, because I was with the kids. And then he was listening to the Art of Manliness podcast, and Greg Kretsch, who is a Morita therapy expert, was on and talking about the psychology of action.
Wow.
And Paul was just like, my God, this guy is amazing and so aligned with the stuff that we were doing, and looked into it a bit further. And we worked out that he did this certification course over in the States.
Right.
And Paul's just said to me, right, it's your turn. It's like, this is for you. If you don't do it, I'll do it. But it's your turn. So I was way out of my comfort zone. First time left the kids, and but travelled over to Vermont in the States, did a 10-day residential component of the certification, and then came back and then studied for a year and a half.
Wow.
And that's how I got into it. And it really, that 10 days at the Toto Institute really completely changed my life.
Right.
It was, the first thing, jumping to one of the components of Morita therapy is around attention and where your attention is. And one of the first things Greg said in the course was, your life is not based on your life. Your life is based on what you pay attention to.
Wow.
And I was just like, whoa, and it kind of just took it from there. Yep. And then when I got back, so I started just slowly getting clients with the Japanese psychology. And then I discovered ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy, which was started by Stephen Hayes in the 1980s. And it is more of a modern approach, but same principles. Yep. It's Japanese psychology. So I combine both of them. Brilliant. And I just love them. And I use the tools myself every day.
And you've turned it into the Kali.
Yes, yeah.
Therapy.
Kali therapy.
Yeah, because you take, I do this too, like bits of this and a bit of that and a bit of this, and you make your own recipe and what resonates with you, what you find is working and so on.
Yeah. And what I actually love about it is it's not just about it was started, Shoma Morita was the Japanese psychiatrist in the 1920s, started it for patients with anxiety, a form of neurosis. Mm-hmm. And it started as an inpatient program, and he had quite a strict protocol that they went through. But what I love is that you can apply these principles into just your daily life. So it's not just about emotional well-being. It's about living fully every day using these principles.
Wow. So let's dive into it a little bit then and start, if someone comes to you, with anxiety, depression, something like that, where would you start with them? So like what I want to get to is, how do we pull out some of the tools and some of the learnings that some people can take, some value away from this conversation today?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where do we, where would you start? What's this type of thing that you're looking at? What sort of tools and process do you go through?
Yeah. So one of the first exercises that I would do with them is to look at their life and identify what's in their control and not what is not within their control. And it's a really interesting exercise because it gets the thinking process going, because that list of what's not in your control becomes very, very long. And the things that are within your control is actually quite short. So, you look at the things that aren't in your control, the obvious ones like the weather, COVID, a lot of political decisions, that sort of stuff. But you drill it down and you can't control what other people think. You can't control what other people think of you. You can certainly influence it, but you can't control it. Mm-hmm. What they do, what they say, how they behave. And you cannot control what you think. Or the thoughts that come into your head.
The automatic sort of thoughts that
the
jump
automatic
up.
thoughts. Yep. and the automatic emotion that comes up. Of course, once those thoughts pop up, you can reframe and, do all that sort of stuff, positive affirmations, all that, all those sort of things. But as soon as that thought pops up into your head, that's beyond your control. Mm-hmm. We have between 70 and 80,000 thoughts a day.
Apparently.
So yeah, crazy, I don't know who measured that.
Thought machines. Yeah, like does someone say, "Oh, you have thought"? We're just churning these things out all the time, like these.
Yeah.
And Dr. Amen, who I follow, Dr. Daniel Amen, he talks about ants, automatic negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And where do you think that you're saying that we're not in control of those? Those are just coming through, and are they coming through from our programming or our subconscious level, or what's
I mean, we're all individuals, and we're a product of, from when we were born right up to our experiences right up until this present moment. But it's also good to have an understanding of how the mind works, because those automatic negative thoughts, if we didn't as humans have a negative bias, we wouldn't exist as a human race today. So, back in caveman days, and you probably heard this before, it's like we had to have anxiety. We had to have that negative skew, because otherwise we were going to get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger.
Yep.
But in our modern world, it's those negative thoughts. It's like what's our boss thinking of us, or why haven't we got that many likes on our Instagram posts? And so it's not helpful. Like a lot of the stuff right now that's causing these negative thoughts is not helpful for us to live fully. So in Morita therapy, yes, the first step is the acceptance. Oh, first of all, it's awareness of thoughts. And that's where it's good to use that metacognition of
Yeah.
observing your thoughts. And
I
so
love that.
being I love that. I'm constantly observing my thoughts.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
there it is again.
Yeah. Because I first heard that from Craig Harper, our mutual friend at the Youth
Yes.
Project, and I've been using that a heck of a lot since I heard that. Where you step outside your sort of self and you watch yourself as if you were above. I do it like as if I was above, looking down. If my spirit self, or whatever you want to call it, looking down at my brain, just tuning out this shit, basically.
Yeah.
bringing forth this blah.
Yeah.
And then looking at it and going, hang on, is that good? Is that serving me right now?
Exactly. And that's the question to ask. It's like, if you can create space, because, and Craig would have talked about the different cells, and we are not our thoughts and we're not our anxiety. So there's a part of us as humans, animals can't do this.
No.
But what makes us unique is that we're able to observe our thoughts. And if we can create that space between us and our thoughts, we can look at that thought more in an analytical way rather than in an emotional way, and go, and it's not about whether that thought is right or wrong. It's whether it's helpful.
Yep. And is it bringing us something right now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so that's sort of the acceptance part of what's in our control, what's not in our control. And the big one is those thoughts and emotions. And then being aware of creating that space and observing them. That's kind of the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And in ACT, we call that diffusion. Or unhooking. When we get hooked by our thoughts, it's like, it's almost like they're pushing us around, and then they start dictating what we do, which is not necessarily taking us towards the person that we really want to be. So if we can observe them and unhook from them, then that gives us that space to choose our behavior and choose it aligned with our values or our purpose, and takes us towards the person that we want to be.
That's brilliant. So that's like, so it's really getting the executive functioning part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, talking to our amygdala more, or being more connected to that area. This frontal area of the brain that only humans have really developed. I mean, some primates and stuff have to a certain degree, but so because a lot of us go around being hijacked by our amygdala all the time. So that's the reptilian part of the brain, that sort of more primitive part of the brain that is responding very, very quickly, quicker than the prefrontal cortex, to dangers in your environment or negative things happening in environment.
Yeah,
it was there as a survival mechanism. I was talking about this the other day, and I said how fast my amygdala switches on when something in my environment happens. Say someone cuts me off in traffic, those first automatic thoughts, if you like, that come up from the amygdala before I've switched my logical adult brain on. I'm gonna punch that dude in the face.
Thank goodness your prefrontal cortex switches in then and says, don't do that.
Yes. And then you go, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Pull yourself in. But when I was younger, I was less able to do that. And I was, very fiery, very angry. Yeah. And now as I've gotten older and understand that sort of process, I can go, okay, come on, take a couple of, deep exhales here, and we're going to calm ourselves down and get a grip on yourself. But it's also a very protective thing. Like, I know that, sometimes I catch a glass that's falling off the table before I've even registered it with my prefrontal cortex. Now that's also like your reaction speed. Your amygdala is working at, I don't know what it is, thousandths of a second faster than this. And so you're catching things. And so it can be a very positive thing, but it can also be in our jails and our justice system are full of people whose amygdalas are more dominant and more able to control. And so they've done things in the spur of the moment, without getting political on it, but it is something that we need to practice and work on. And it's something that, you as a parent would know that the younger the child is, the less control that they have up there. So they just do whatever their emotional brain tells them to do, scream, yell, kick, whatever. Yeah. And as we get older, we learn to handle that more. But there's still this, this disconnect going on.
Yeah. And our brains aren't fully developed until the age of 25.
Yeah, apparently with
around
boys
that.
at least.
Yeah.
Boys take
A
longer
bit
than the
less
girls.
for the girls, of course.
We're more mature.
But you look at that, and there's decisions being made by young people that are going to affect them for the rest of their life.
Exactly.
And it's but their brains aren't fully developed to be able to make these long-term decisions. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's the sort of awareness and stepping out and unhooking, as you said, or diffusion, and looking at yourself. So that's the first thing that you can do. And looking at what is in your control and what is not in your control. So how do you approach the stuff that's not in your control, that makes you fearful, for example?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what other people think is a huge one. For the majority of my clients, it is the number one fear, if you want to call it, or anxiety or worry, is what others think of them. And even that is a very normal. So the next step, I guess, is about acceptance. And it's not acceptance in a passive way, but it's an acceptance of what is a natural part of just the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And worrying what people think is actually quite normal, because back when we were in a tribal setting, we had to care what others thought. We had to know that we were adding value to the tribe and the survival of the tribe. Mm-hmm. Otherwise we'd get kicked out. So it's just that now we're not, there's too many people. We have so many connections, not only our physical connection with people, but also through social media. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like this connection overdrive that we have, and this worry about what others think, this worry about, the posts, especially for young people, posts on social media and their appearance and all that sort of stuff. So I guess I approach that first of all with my clients that this is just a natural part of being human. But looking at that thought of, if they're worried about what somebody is thinking of them, looking at that as not right or wrong, but is it helpful? If it's not helpful, then do that observing self, diffuse or unhook from it, mm-hmm. create that space, and then redirect attention into what needs to be done in that moment. And acceptance of acceptance isn't about that sort of passive, I've got to put up with it. It's not about tolerating anything, but it's about making room for it, and making room for those thoughts and those emotions that come up, and using tools like the breath and exercise that to manage it.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is about discomfort tolerance levels, because we don't, and I know you would talk about comfort zone a lot in we got
into that with Paul.
So Morita, he he believed that in Morita therapy there was two sort of opposing forces. One was a desire to live fully, mm-hmm. and the other one was this desire to be secure and comfortable. So they're opposing each other. But as you would know, any success, like all my achievements in my life, has involved some level of discomfort. Mm. So, and sometimes we're willing to feel that discomfort. Even on your wedding day, you feel you're feeling nervous and everything, but you still get married. You get through it. Yeah, but it's that sort of everyday anxiety that we feel, and it's this sort of focus on the discomfort and wanting to get rid of it. And when that's intense, this is not easy. I don't want to lighten this, because I know that these intense feelings can be quite debilitating for people. But using these tools, you make room for it and make space around it, and be able to do what's important to you, coexisting, bringing that discomfort with you, in the hope that it's going to turn down, like the intensity. It's a bit like a radio playing in the background. If the radio is really loud, it's kind of taking your attention. It's hard to focus. But using these tools of diffusing or unhooking, it's slowly the radio just starts to turn down, and it might just be a little murmur in the background.
And hanging with that tension long enough. So stepping, being brave enough to take something on, say a challenge, like you going to America to learn this thing. I bet you were, and leaving your kids behind and your husband behind, and you're off to this new place, and you're like, what the hell am I I doing? And
oh God, yeah.
all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, me and my life going off to run the Himalayas or the Sahara and absolutely shitting myself, you know, like going, what, you know, and it sounded all good while you were signing up and you'd had a glass of wine, and now you're like, what am I doing? And I'm in this so deep, there's no way out now. So I have to go through. So I know that tension very, very well. And I know that those are the times when the growth happens, isn't it? When you're pushing, but you are also risking failure. You are risking being, and this is the sort of dichotomy, or the you know, how it's contradictory. We as human beings seek comfort. We seek safe, because that is our DNA programming, you know. But because we live in such comfortable societies with comfortable couches and comfortable Netflixes to watch, and houses that we live in and cars that we drive, and we don't ever get out of our comfort zone if we don't want to. You know, we can have our food delivered to our door and order our clothes online, and we can, you know, we can be very, very insular if that's the way that we decide to live, but we're never going to grow in that state. You know,
that's
we're
right.
never going to challenge, we're never going to fulfill our potential. And so when you talk to people, they all want change. They all want to be epic. They all want to do like, oh, I wish I could be like you and I don't know, run ultra marathons or run a business or whatever the case may be. But nobody's wrong, but a lot of people just are not willing to put up with the pain, the discomfort, the fear, the financial investment, the time investment, the hard yards, in order to reap those rewards. So how do you teach yourself to be that little bit tougher? Little bit, I'm going to do this, I'm scared anyway, but I'm doing it. You know, how do you teach yourself that sort of toughness or resilience? Or
because if you try and avoid or suppress those strong, you know, intense emotions, it's going to affect your life. You're not going to be able to live fully by staying in that comfort zone. And you know, it just reminded me of the cold shower thing. I had my cold shower this morning. So we're running this 8-week course, because Joanna, we might talk about it later, but part of that is this ritual of the cold shower. Now, I don't particularly like the cold. And I like being comfortable as well. It's like, I don't, you know, being anxious or nervous, it's not a nice feeling to have. So, but what you can do is practice getting uncomfortable. So deliberate practice. And I think Paul called it discomfort harvesting, or harvesting discomfort.
That's right. And that's what I should do a PhD in, I reckon.
Oh, there you go.
Because I'm good at harvesting discomfort.
There you go. We've got your PhD topic. But cold showers are such a good tool to get out of your comfort zone, because you have total control at the end of your nice warm shower, which is nice and comfortable. You have control whether you turn that to cold and spend a minimum of 30 seconds under that cold water.
Being uncomfortable.
And if you can't do that, then the likelihood of when something goes wrong and these intense emotions come up, then the likelihood of you being able to handle that could be low if you can't even handle having a cold shower.
Exactly.
So that's, I mean, cold showers, as you know, have, you know, there's
huge benefits.
Oh, huge benefits on immune system and you know, even emotional well-being and everything. But from me and my experience of them, it is about getting out of my comfort zone. Because I need to practice that as well.
Yeah, we all do, all the time. It's not like you know, this is the misconception too, that you've done it, you know, in my case, Sam had done one ultra marathon, therefore you're tough for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. This is something you need to, you know, use it or lose it stuff. You know, and that's why that daily ritual stuff is very important.
Absolutely. And we're never exonerated. We'll keep until the day we die, we'll keep doing this stuff, because, you know, we're human. And that's the acceptance part of it, is that life is hard. I think I loved Matthew McConaughey's, did I pronounce that right? That speech that he did for the students who are graduating.
No, I haven't heard that one.
Well, one of the things he just says, life is hard. And, you know, there's nothing original in that, but it's just the way he said it. It's like you need to get used to it. You need to prepare for it, because we're not life will not, as humans, we will not stay in this comfortable environment. Something will happen. Somebody will get sick. The jobs will be lost. It's like COVID happened and businesses were like, it's like stuff happens to us. So what we can do while things are going well is put ourselves out of our comfort zone on just small things on a daily basis. And then when the shit hits the fan, we can really cope with it.
Yeah, and this is just summed up my entire books really. Okay. in a mouthful, because it is about scaring the crap out of yourself, pushing the limits and finding what you can do. Not all the time. Like we need times for, you've spoken about this before, about rest and recovery times and coming back so that you can recover from that big thing that you just took on. You can't just go back to back, scary, big, awesome, huge things all the time, because that leads to burnout and PTSD and goodness knows what else. So it is about everything that I study in biology and in psychology and all of the areas that I study. It seems to be this flow. Life loves this ebb and flow, from our nutrition. So, eating the same thing all the time, always being on keto. It's not good. It's about this up and down. And with biology, you want to have a little bit of this and then you want to pull back. You want a little bit of cold. And when it comes to hormetic stresses, doing things like saunas, like cold showers, like training and exercise, if you do too much, you're gonna, if you look at those 4 phases of resistance, stress, where you got the resistant, the alert phase, and then the resistance phase, and then the recovery or exhaustion phase. And if you're going overtraining, you're not going to get that response, that super compensation. And it's the same thing here. You want to be flowing in and out of tough times, come back, recover, see how that went, then have another crack at something else in a different area of your life perhaps. And that this ebb and flow of life is if we just stay in the static, then we're actually going backwards. And where this really matters for me, and the stuff that I do, is when it comes to health. Because if you're not in this willingness to put up with the things like the cold showers and going training when you don't feel like it, and eating good food, and trying to have these stable fundamental health habits and working on them. Like, I'm not perfect and no one's perfect, but working on these things, you are going to pay the price with your life, your health, yes, we're all going to die one day, but I hope that I will live a healthy, long lifespan, a very long one. And I want to have health for as long as I possibly can. And so by studying all this, by learning all this, you can actually hopefully hinder, the worst things happening. Prevent
absolutely.
A lot of things. You can't prevent everything, because like you said, some things are outside of our control, and we have to acknowledge that. But okay, what can I do to up the odds that I'm going to live long, up the odds that I'm going to be healthy until the end, all of those types of things, because the price, and I've seen this in my own life and in my own family, unfortunately, when they didn't acknowledge all those things along the way, and then the big freight train came and hit them, and then you're pushing the proverbial uphill.
There's a reflection exercise that I do with my clients, and it's imagine that you're 80 and you're reflecting back on your life, but it's your life today. So you don't go back any in the past. It's like you're reflecting back on your life today. And one of the questions is, what would you do differently? And it's a really powerful question, because it gets you to kind of look at your life in a sort of analytical way and go, well, actually, things like, I'd exercise more, or I'd drink less, or, spending more time with your family is a huge one. That's usually the number one thing. I would spend more time with my kids, or more time with my family. And once you've got that list, you can look at that, and then you have the power today to choose those things moving forward. So if you project yourself into the future, reflect back, you then are able to almost design your life how you want to live from this point onwards.
Yeah, that and so that because we all, I think we've heard, what are people that are on their deathbeds thinking? What are their greatest regrets that they wish they had done? And it is things like that. It's not, I wish I'd worked more.
Yeah.
I wish I'd earned more money. We need a certain amount of work and we need a certain amount of money to live and certain, all of these sorts of things. But it is what is your highest priorities, and then aligning your values and what you're doing to those priorities. And that's really, it's a dynamic thing. It changes a little bit, and your values and all of the things change over time.
Yeah.
But being in alignment with your greatest priorities now is, something that we need to keep reevaluating. And are we on track for that? And I'm talking to myself here, because I'm, definitely a workaholic, and, I want to, that sounds like a great idea. Write another book, do a PhD, whatever dreams and things that you've got. And then you're like, that's going to take me away from my family. And earlier in my life, I'd be just like, I wouldn't even thought that. I would have just been so excited about the thing. And now I've got to start to think about those things, because you start to realize now I'm 52 and, I'm running out of time here. To do the things that I want. And when you lose a loved one, like I, recently lost my dad, that's a real wolf.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you sort of like when there's no major thing like that has happened to you yet, you're just bumbling along and everything's okay, and you're sort of doing, and you're not like. And now, like when I talk to my family members and stuff about, my father, it's like, I wish I'd taken him fishing more. I wish I'd spent more time. I wish I'd learned from and we're all wishing we had, done this and the other. And it is that wake up call that is like, how do you want to be thinking in the next 20 years then?
And that's kind of a silver lining thing as well, isn't it? And even though something, as sad and the loss of a loved one, that silver lining is that you can learn from that and go, well, I wish I'd done that. And then is there an opportunity now to do that with somebody who's here and with you?
Exactly.
And Do I was thinking one of the things that I've started doing consistently now, because, with life, the modern world, the way it is, and it's rush. And, we're getting up and almost, a lot of us are on autopilot. And I know I was, even with it's like, right, I'll go to my CrossFit class or my exercise class, and then I'm going to work and then do this. It's like, go.
Yeah.
So many inputs, and it's like emails and text messages and social media. It's like everything's kind of input. It's overwhelmed. So what I started doing, and it's actually Craig Harper, I was on his podcast last year, and right at the end of it was before Christmas, I totally walked into this. He was like, so what's something that you want to achieve in 2021? And I said, I want to get up earlier, because what I was finding, even though I was still getting up like 6:30, but I was just finding I was just going straight into it.
Yeah.
And so he set me this 100-day challenge to get up at 5:30 each day. And what I did was I've started this pre-input routine. I don't know if you do this.
Wow. Tell me more.
So I get up and there's no phone. I do not touch my phone. I don't have my phone in my room. It's on charge in the kitchen. So don't go near it. Don't go near a computer. What I've started doing is the first thing I do is I journal.
Yep.
So and it's not a journal where I'm writing paragraphs of stuff. It's all kind of dot points. But the first thing I do is I do a metric. So I just say alarm went off at 5:30, got up at 5:45, or maybe I did get up at 5:30, or maybe I got up at 6, but I measure it. And so over time, I've kind of been able to see, well, what influenced me, whether I didn't get up or whether I did get up. Most of it is what I did the night before.
Yep.
The morning starts the night before. So, you can see patterns there.
Yep.
But the big thing that I found is that it gives me silence. And I think silence is something that we're missing in today's world because of all these inputs. And if you can sit with silence, that's when you can really think about things. You can observe your thoughts. You can start being creative when ideas come up. So,
it's so true.
Yeah. So before any inputs, I journal, I look at what my wins were yesterday, and really celebrate those.
Brilliant.
There's, have you heard BJ
Yeah,
Fogg?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
Tiny habits, love it.
yeah, tiny habits. So, and he says to celebrate the small things, and you get that little dopamine hit. And dopamine is also the neurotransmitter for motivation.
Yes.
So, it's so I will journal, even micro moments that I've had with people outside in the community that I thought, oh, that was a really, with my barista, it's like she makes me a great coffee and she has a chat and tells me how my hair looks nice. And, it's those sort of little things that I think we need to have more focus on it, and to celebrate those sort of moments in our life, because otherwise they just pass up. They're just fleeting and we're on to the next thing.
And when we tend to just be looking at the big picture all the time, like the big goals, the program we're writing, or the book we're doing, or the project at work, or whatever the case is, and we don't celebrate those. And I've started to, because I'm running 3 companies. I've got a disabled mum that I still look after 24/7, 7 days a week. It's full on, and a lot of the time you're just like, it's just like, some days I'm just like, how the hell does any human brain do this? Like, I'm just like, I've got a pretty good brain, but I'm not keeping up. And then you drop the ball and you're like, oh, you're such, like I said to my husband, oh, I dropped the ball on this appointment the other day and I'm such an idiot. And he said, stop. You're not an idiot. You're telling yourself that. And I'm going, oh, of course I am. Yeah.
Observe that. Is that helpful? No.
Thanks for pointing that out to me. And you're doing the best you bloody well can in this very difficult situation. Give yourself a break. And I'm like, I heard that. And we're all doing that. Like, we're all like trying to keep up, because it seems to get faster and more. And so taking moments out, like an appointment fell through this morning. Opportunity. Now I can either get into some work, which is plenty to do, or my husband comes out and he's looking all down in the dumps and exhausted, and let's go for a walk, darling. It's a beautiful day. Let's go and just walk for 20 minutes. Get some sunshine on our eyes, wake ourselves up, have a talk about the day before, and then come back and and then, wow, it's a different start to the day.
Yeah, amazing.
Because usually it's just back, and then you find yourself at 10 o'clock at night when you finally sat down for the first time, and you just like, you turn the telly on or something just to zone out. And to sort of compensate for this whirlwind. But building into your day those little micro times where there's a beautiful flower. Being in the what beautiful sunshine, and there's someone smiling at me. Hi, how you doing? Just those little wee things that can help you get enough energy to get through to the next appointment.
And that's where attention comes in too, which is part of Morita therapy, is that we can pay attention internally to our problems and our thoughts, our feelings, or our pain, or we can, even with all that going on, we can still pay attention to a beautiful flower. Or it's about one of the most simple, and it sounds crazy, but using your senses can get you out of your head and into the present moment. And we were talking about, I think Paul may have mentioned this, I don't know, that it's one of the exercises is looking for the color blue. So if you find you're ruminating in thoughts, or if you're driving in the car, I find that that's when I start, like, all the thoughts come up when I'm driving. It's like, because it's such an automatic thing that you do. So I really try and redirect my attention. There's a metaphor of a torch. So the beam of light is your attention, and you have control over where you shine that beam of light.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so effective. So am I shining that torch in my internal world, or can I redirect it with all this going on, redirect it to the outside world? And I'll just look for things of color blue, look for tiny things of color blue, look for, obviously the sky hopefully will be blue, look for different shades of blue. And what that does, it doesn't get rid of what's going on internally, but it just redirects your attention.
It distracts you from the internal
looping
that goes on in your brain, when you start to just those thoughts just keep going around in circles, and there's actually no
Yeah.
solution coming out of it.
Yeah.
And this is the sort of thinking that goes on at 2:00 in the morning when you wake up and
Yes.
your cortisol's gone up and you've got some project that you're struggling with or something, and it's just loop, and you've got to break that loop.
That's the hardest time, because at 2:00 in the morning, you can't really look for the color blue. But you can ask yourself a question: is this happening now? Oh, no, this is not. It's a statement. This isn't happening now.
Yep. And I am safe.
Because you say, because you're thinking about the future or you're thinking about the past, but it's not happening now. And what's happening now is that you need to sleep.
Yeah.
So,
and then I focus on do breath work and so if I'm, and it, it doesn't happen so much to me now, that does on occasion.
Yeah.
But where we do some breath work where you're concentrating on the exhale, and there's lots of different breath, box breathing or 4, 7, 8 breathing I like to do, where you're doing this massively long exhale, and that really slows down the just on the parasympathetic nervous system and can actually help you fall back to sleep. And I find that very, very powerful.
Yeah.
But it's just breaking that cycling in your head. When you find yourself like with a specific problem that you're just not getting the answers to, and you're just going round and round, that's when you need to go and either meditate, breathe, go for a walk, go for a run, do something that actually changes your mood.
Yes.
So, and you're allowing space, because a lot of the time I think people think, I have to stay here and nut this out and solve this problem right now, otherwise it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
And actually, when you let go and you let it have time and space, that's when the answers come to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And looking at what's within your control in that moment. It's not within your control that these ruminating thoughts keep coming up, but what is within your control is how you respond to them. Yep. So what you do in that moment. And a really good question to ask is, what needs to be done now?
Yep.
So because we only are a series of moments. Yeah. It's like we only have the present moment. And most of the time, the anxiety or the ruminating thoughts are not related to the present moment. They're about the future or the past. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So getting back there, actually, do you know, that reminds me, there was a study done, I don't know if you've heard of it, by Matt Killingsworth, and he's done this study on the wandering mind. Mm-hmm. And how it relates to happiness. And he created this app, and there was like 35,000 people involved in this study.
Wow.
And what he did is, like, throughout the day, people were just getting on with their day. And throughout the day, these questions would pop up. It's like, what are you doing now? And they had, like, a list of like 50 things they might be doing, like I'm on the train or I'm at work or whatever. And then it was, what are you, are you thinking about what you're doing, or are you thinking about something else? So it was measuring their wandering mind and then measuring their happiness levels.
Wow.
And, it showed that even if you are stuck in traffic, which is a very frustrating thing, especially if you're running late, if your mind was wandering, you were less happy than if you were in the present moment, just observing your surroundings.
Just looking at the traffic and wow.
And you were even happier being in the present moment, stuck in traffic, than if you were in a pleasant moment or but having a wandering mind.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
So staying in the present.
Being in the present moment and sort of, and I think we need to practice. It is a skill, and the skill, attention is a skill, and being aware that our attention is constantly being robbed.
Absolutely.
It's just like advertising and, social media. It's just constant attention. So if we can take control of our attention and get into the present moment, then that can have such a huge impact on our well-being.
Oh, absolutely. And this is, one of the things where I love like a podcast like this. I am fully focused on you in this conversation, and nothing is pulling at me right now. Whereas when I'm working on the computer and there's 100 windows open and I'm about to, absolutely. And, I'm just going to drop on Messenger so that I can do this task, send a message to so-and-so. I get onto, Messenger. This is an example. And then, there's another message coming. Oh, who was that from? Okay. I'll answer that. And then you're off and you're over here and you're over there. And that original thing that you were actually meant to be doing in that moment is gone. And this is the difficulty. And even though I know that this happens and I'm trying to control it, because and shutting those windows down is not always an option, because you have to have the windows open, otherwise you're going to refine the bloody websites every time. But having the control to go, no, we'll work on that later. So like I'm working with a guy at the moment who I'm sure I'm driving insane on systems and processes, because this is a thing that my brain does not do well. And it's driving my business partner mental, because I am constantly like chasing shiny objects, super excited about science, like running here and there, learning everything, wanting to do 100 courses, not focusing on the things that need, the systems and the processes and the boring shit, the
detail.
That I hate. Yeah. And so I've got this poor guy who's trying to help me. Shout out to Mike Drowan. Get my calendar sorted, get my scheduling sorted, get my inbox under control, get these basic systems that. And it was an interesting, like the Calendly thing that you have to have, that all professional people have, and I have, like, I can't do it, I can't work it out, can't work it out. And what happens if they're overseas? And I don't get it. And there was this resistance to it, because I didn't want to waste my time learning something that I am not interested in, and somebody else take care of that. And I tried to get my assistant to take care of it, and tried to get my husband to take care of it, and nobody would take care of it. They kept landing back on my lap. Yeah. And so Mike said, you have to do it, And so I actually spent yesterday like a good 2-3 hours setting it up. And I was so proud of myself, because stuff I hate.
And did you just focus on that task that you had to do, and didn't have anything else come in?
Yeah, I had things coming in, but I kept bringing my focus back, and I actually managed it for the first time in history, on a thing that I'm not interested in. Because if it's a thing that I'm interested in, if it's science, man, I will listen to stuff and learn stuff and read stuff for Africa hours every day. That's what I love. That's my happy place. But when it comes to doing the admin, the tax, the accounting, the blah, 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 and learning that software, oh God, hopeless, you know. But it's not because I'm, and I thought, I've always thought, you're just too dumb for that. You just don't get it. Your brain doesn't work. And that was an excuse, really. Because I can, and I know I have a good brain that can cope with it. It's just that I never gave it the attention, because I didn't want to be there. Yeah. And that's still got to be a battle, but it's an interesting thing.
It reminds me too that this morning sort of pre-input routine, that what a lot of people do is deep work in that time. So if there's something really important that you need to work on, like if you're writing a book, or like whatever it is that you want to spend 2 hours on, or however many hours on, without any inputs, do that first thing in the morning.
Amen.
So good. And the phone's out. Don't have your email open. Don't have those. But if you can, or turn off your notifications, but have that as your deep work, and get that done, and then you get on with the day with all the other stuff that you need to do. It's there's a lot of people
ticked.
Exactly. And it's that Stephen Covey thing that, the important, not urgent stuff, like do that first.
What's the most, and then that's really hard to do, and when, and prioritizing those lists, and this is where the systems and processes coming in, as I'm finding out now, as I'm working on this, is that, this is urgent and important. Okay. You have to do that right away. And if it's just urgent, but not important, it can wait, I've forgotten all the whole list of things that you sort of, but doing that in an automatic fashion, so that you actually know what if a free space comes into your life, like a cancellation or something, okay, what is the thing that I can grab out of my to-do list that should be filling that space? And I'm still working on that one, instead of getting dragged any which way, which I still tend to do.
Which is so easy to do.
And there's a billion things when you're self, got your own company and you're working, there is a billion hats you have to wear every day. And then that becomes just, like you can work 24/7 and still be behind.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that's why, what you were saying before, when you had that opportunity, when you had that space because you missed an appointment, you had that space to choose where you were going to go, and you chose a walk with your husband, which is just such a good recovery thing to do, and a time to be present, and a time to spend time with somebody that you love, and grasp those opportunities.
Yeah, and not feel guilty, which is what I tend to do. I really should have picked that other project up, No, I really should have given my husband the time when he needed it, or my mum, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
In that moment, and take those little opportunities that come up. And
so important.
Oh, Carly, this has been such an interesting conversation. I feel like we could go for another couple of hours, and maybe I'll get you back on, because we didn't even get into the rest of the ACT therapy and the different areas. But is there anything, as we start to wrap up now, anything else that you think that we haven't covered that we should, that would really help people out there listening?
Look, I think the sort of the overarching thing with this approach is having a purpose-driven life rather than an emotional-driven life. And what I mean by purpose is that it's not this sort of big, what's my purpose of life, but the purpose of the moment. So even with, when worry or anxiety or ruminating thoughts, just looking at what is my purpose in this moment. And it could be a simple thing as I need to clean up the kitchen, because, that's, having your house in order is something that's important to me. And so it's those sort of small things that we do every day that kind of creates purpose in our lives. And I think that's an important thing because it's so easy to have our emotions drive us and respond with depending on how we're feeling. But if we can look at the purpose of the moment, then we can make those choices that are going to help us live more fully.
Yeah, and not relying on motivation all the time, but actually taking action and doing the things that are on your, the highest priority.
Yeah.
And you and Paul have an 8-week program. So you're doing an 8-week program, which is all around, you tell us a little bit about that, what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah. So we're running an 8-week program. We've got about 93 on it, which it's our first one. So we're really, really pleased.
That's amazing.
And so we do a weekly Zoom session every Tuesday night. It goes for about an hour and a half. And it's basically, we go through all the different domains of our lives and the different areas. So nutrition, mindset is a big one, exercise. So each week we have sort of a different topic, and then there's an app that goes with that. So there's like a ritual board. So everybody has daily rituals that they can tick off. Cold shower is one of them. And they get points for that. So there's a bit of healthy competition going on. There's a leaderboard on who's doing what. And we've had such good response from people. It's been amazing. So we're hoping to do another one soon after this one's finished. We're halfway through now.
Brilliant. I think, this is the sort of stuff I love, and, I eat for breakfast, love this stuff. I think it's so important that we're working on this sort of thing. So where can people find you and reach out to you and to Paul and what you're doing? What's your website and your social media handles and so on?
Yeah, so mine is carlytaylorcoaching.com.au, and Instagram's Carly Taylor Coaching, and then mindbodybrain.com.au, which you'll find more about the Better You course, which is it's a behaviour change course. So that's the 8-week program.
We'll put all those notes in the show notes, and
and then Instagram is mindbodybrain, which is
mindbodybrain. Look, Carly, you've been fantastic today. Thank you so much for your time and your input and your passion that you bring to the stuff.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to meet you.
It's just been epic. I've really, really enjoyed our conversation. And I think a lot of people will have got a lot of practical tips to take away from this conversation as well.
Yeah, they'll be looking for the colour blue today.
Exactly.